Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Welcome to this special session number 1 of the Africa Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. We are going to be discussing about the coordination and cooperation of multi-hazard impact-based early warning systems in Africa. So this is a very, very important session, and I welcome to be listening to all the very, very high-level panelists that we have participating in this session. This session is, of course, closely linked to Sendai Framework Global Target G, which looks for an enhanced access to and availability of multi-hazard early warning systems and risk assessment. This is a topic that is of, as I said, very high importance because from what we know on the data for the past, it has actually been early warning and preparedness efforts linked to early warning systems that have helped to reduce the mortality due to disasters around the world. So we pretty much look forward to this session. And this is an area also where the UN Office of Disaster Risk Reduction has invested a lot of energy and resources thanks to the contribution from our key partners working very closely with the African Union and member states to work on this subject. So let me briefly mention that as we go along this session, if anybody has questions they would like to pose to panelists, you will have the possibility of putting your questions through the chat that you have available on the bottom of your screens. And I would like to go ahead without further ado to the first panelist, which will be actually a message that will be read. Unfortunately, Her Excellency Josefa Leonel Correa Sacco from the African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment did have some technical issues, and her statement is going to be read by Mr. Gatkuo Kai, who is the African Union Technical Coordinator for DRR. So we welcome very much your remarks, Kai. Over to you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to read the statement from Her Excellency, Ambassador Commissioner Sacco, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment of the African Union. Allow me to read the statement the way it is to make sure I don't make any mistake. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I have the honor to welcome you to this special session on coordination and cooperation for multi-hazard impact-based early warning systems in Africa, which is being held on the margins of the 8th Africa Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. Early warning systems serve lives, livelihoods, environment, and economic development. However, early warning systems can only be effective if they lead to early actions. And early actions depends on available and predictable financial, technical, and logistical resources. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to emphasize this nexus. First, an early warning system is irrelevant if it cannot trigger early action. Second, an early action fails if it is not backed by reliable and long-term financial mechanisms. The reality of this nexus in African countries is complex. Many African Union member states have been making important progress in establishing early warning systems. However, there are generally inadequate early warning systems in many African states. And where they exist, they are mostly sectoral warning systems, sitting in different line ministries. This does not only complicate coordination and early warning system, but also early action and anticipatory action and preparedness. Secondly, even where early warning information exists and well coordinated, most often action comes too late or too little. Fiscal constraints and inadequate institutional arrangements limit capacities to implement early action, preparedness, and response. In light of complexities in managing early warning and early action issues in Africa, the African Union Commission has developed a multi-hazard early warning and early action programs. Some of the key deliverables of this program include establishment of multi-hazard early warning system situation room. And these also include development of institutional framework for multi-hazard early warning and early action. The government of Italy, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Kima Research Foundation have been our key partners supporting this program. The government of Sweden and UNDP has supported initial work that laid firm foundation for the program. The institutional framework was validated by member states during the multi-hazard early warning conference held in Nairobi, Kenya. In the coming days, the Continental Situation Room will be inaugurated. Other situation rooms supported through these programs include the IGAD Disaster Operations Center here in Nairobi, which was officially inaugurated by His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, the President of the Republic of Kenya. Other situation rooms include ACMAT Advisory Situation Room in Niamey, Niger. In the coming years, before 2030, we envision an Africa where all its member states and regional economic communities have fully operational multi-hazard early warning systems, as well as interoperable situation rooms. Similarly, we envision an effective institutional arrangements for early actions that significantly contribute to reduction of disaster losses. The AU Commission will step up its advocacy effort, employing its convening power to encourage member states to prioritize investment in disaster risk reduction and early warning systems. We will continue to knock doors of our development partners to join us in this journey, and yet one of the chiefest and immediate means to reduce disaster losses in Africa by 2030. In this special session, I wish to emphasize once again, investment in early warning systems save lives and protect development gains. Therefore, in light of increasing disaster risk, investing in early warning and early action is urgent and essential. I thank you.
Thank you very much to you, Gatkwot Kai, for these remarks, and through you to Commissioner Sacco for her statement. And let me proceed, ladies and gentlemen, with our next speaker. And this will be through a video statement from the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and for International Cooperation of Italy, Ms. Marina Sereni. So if you could kindly put the video message on. Thank you.
Madam Chair, let me start by thanking you for the kind invitation. Disaster risk reduction is at the core of the Italian humanitarian action, and even though I cannot be physically in Nairobi with you, I am pleased to record a message on such an important issue. We are aware that the African continent is particularly prone to extreme natural events, which are every day more intense and frequent due to climate change. They affect the lives of millions of people who often live in emergency contexts already characterized by conflicts and insecurity. The COVID-19 pandemic adds to these challenges. As a result, humanitarian needs are increasing and international donors struggle with the growing funding requirements. In this framework, investing in prevention is not only necessary, but also essential. We need to act now. For this reason, I am particularly grateful to share our experience of fruitful collaboration with UNDRR, one of Italy's most active partners on early warning and early action, especially in Africa. The collaboration stems from the Italian expertise in the sector, developed because of the recurring extreme natural events that affect Italy, mainly earthquakes and floods. The Italian civil protection and the private sector, such as the CIMA Foundation, are a tangible example of this. As part of our collaboration with UNDRR, in 2020, the Italian cooperation funded a project aimed at equipping the African Union Commission with a continental situation room to facilitate exchange, monitoring, and analysis of DRR data and information through a free open source platform developed by the Italian Civil Protection. I am particularly proud that in the context of this program, last October, our ambassador in Kenya, together with the IGAD Executive Secretary, inaugurated the Regional Situation Room of the Disaster Operations Center within the IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center near Ngong, Nairobi. The new Situation Room will monitor and anticipate the risks in the IGAD region, managing data coming from different sources and ensuring a coordinated approach. Moreover, the Italian funding will provide the training for the personnel working in the Situation Room. Considering this extremely effective collaboration, I am pleased to inform you that we will be refunding the program with €2 million this year. Our contribution in the sector of the UNDRR in Africa is not limited to this program. While in 2019 we contributed for €1 million for a project in the Horn of Africa, this year we are currently drafting a new project in the Sahel region. We stand ready to collaborate with the UNDRR in the interest of the African people also next year. Thank you for your attention.
And special thanks to Vice Minister Sereni for her statement and for the support that the government of Italy is providing to UNDRR and the African Union for making possible the development of our work around the early warning systems and related activities. We really appreciate the leadership of the government of Italy in pushing for the disaster risk reduction agenda and for the strong partnership that we have with them. Our third panelist with a statement on this opening part of this session is Professor Petery Talas, who is the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization. And this will also be presented via a video. So I kindly invite you to put the video or message from Professor Talas.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to join you today, even virtually. Global warming continues unabated, as shown in latest WMO reports. Facts are very clear. Since the Paris Agreement, every single year has been the warmest on record. The scale of recent changes across the climate system is unprecedented since many centuries or millennia. Human-induced climate change is already triggering weather and climate extremes all around the globe. Science shows that some climate events in 2021 would have been virtually impossible if it were not for human-induced climate change. Projections for the coming decades indicate that climate change will increase in all regions. With the global warming of 1.5 degrees, there will be more heat waves, longer warm seasons, shorter cold seasons, more floods, more droughts, with 2 degrees heat extremes will more often than today reach critical tolerance thresholds for agriculture and health. Even in the best of all scenarios, we have no choice but to adapt to more extreme events. This is why we urgently need to scale up our efforts on early warning in Africa. Multi-hazard and impact-based early warning systems are crucially important. They are one of the cornerstones of WMO's action on the continent. 1 in 3 human beings on Earth are still not protected by these critical life-saving systems. And Africa does display some persistent capacity gaps. WMO is scaling up engagement with our UN and humanitarian partners on this. Our goal is to accelerate the progress in the years to come. We need to shift from the current focus on response to a focus on prevention and anticipation. Access to multi-hazard early warning systems is one of the cornerstones of this strategy. WMO is especially active in 3 main areas. First, the global multi-hazard alerting system and other initiatives such as CRUISE allow WMO and its partners to scale up their work. We must enable high quality and actionable alerts to ensure that citizens have access to information and can act on time. To achieve this, it is essential that we create and share the best available science and technology. We will strengthen collaboration with colleagues at the UN Office on Disaster Risk Reduction, the International Telecommunications Union, and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Croissant societies to allow our members to distribute warnings that are more authoritative and more timely. This will happen inter alia thanks to the Common Alerting Protocol. Global systems allow for a bird's eye on weather, water, ocean, and climate events. Shifting the outlook to a macro level supports decision-making in taking early action and ultimately mitigate the impacts of these events. Second, UNDRR and WMO jointly launched the Center for Excellence for Climate and Disaster Resilience. The center will promote a comprehensive understanding of disaster risk across multiple countries. The risk landscape is changing rapidly. Risks can no longer be considered in isolation. The ripple effects of COVID pandemic have shown that the disasters are not confined to one sector, one location, or one community. On the contrary, they can quickly turn into global crises. Risk is interconnected, it cascades along entire systems, and its impacts are multi-pronged, long-lasting, non-linear, and unequal. Proactive risk reduction is therefore imperative. Joint efforts are needed to carve a sustainable and resilient future, one that leaves no one behind. The Center of Excellence I just mentioned allows us to better understand cascading and systemic risks. Every year our understanding is getting better. We understand risk drivers that interact with climate change and sometimes amplify the impacts of extreme weather events. Scientific engagement will scale transformation in impact-based forecasting. All of this is essential for governments, for the private sector, and for citizens everywhere to take action. This transformation will not only save lives, it will also save money. Every dollar invested in risk reduction can save up to $15 in post-disaster recovery. Third and lastly, WMO understands that more support is needed to help translate weather and climate information into anticipatory action. This is why WMO is stepping up its capacity to provide tailored advice to the humanitarian sector. The objective is to help humanitarians to access and most appropriate data, services and expertise from the WMO community. In turn, this will turn the development and operation of anticipatory action triggers. With generous support from China, the United Kingdom, Switzerland, and other members, we are progressing, and the first benefits are appearing. WMO supports standard operating procedures of the Interagency Standing Committee on El Niño and La Niña. Early warning action reports are issued. WMO members receive essential information. Our understanding of risk coupled with robust systems will allow us to join the dots between science and action. It will also allow us to focus more on anticipation. And with this, I would like to conclude by welcoming remarks with a word of thanks to our hosts, UNDRR and the African Union Commission, and all the wonderful speakers gathered for this event today. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend a warm invitation for further collaboration in the coming years. We have planned opportunities to do so. We invite you to join the launch of our pilot efforts for a global alerting system in Africa. In March next year, in Mozambique, a virtual celebration will take place to mark the World Meteorological Day under the motto Early Warning and Early Action, Hydrometeorological and Climate Information for Disaster Risk Reduction. The third conference on multi-hazard early warning will also participate in the lead-up to the 7th session of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction to be held later in Bali, Indonesia. If we join forces, we can deliver on the aspirations of the Paris Agreement, Sendai framework, and to the Sustainable Development Goals to build a resilient world for all. Today's event is an important milestone. We are strengthening our determination to combine our forces. We will deliver a more resilient world for everyone. I wish you great success in your important deliberations today. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Professor Talas, the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organizations, for his welcoming statement. And I think that indeed, as Professor Talas says, joining forces is absolutely crucial for actually increasing the impact of early warning systems. And we are very pleased to be partnering with WMO as the lead agencies on the Center of Excellence on Climate and Disaster Resilience that Professor Talas was referring to. So thank you very much to Professor Talas. And now let me move ahead with our agenda. The next participant, somebody who is already familiar to the panel, we will invite the intervention by Mr. Gatkuot Kai, the technical coordinator for DRR of the African Union Commission. And Kai will be speaking to us on the importance of having a continental situation room for impact-based early warning systems. So Kai, I give you the floor again and welcome, please.
Thank you, Ricardo. I actually have a presentation, so let me share my screen. All right, yeah. As I said earlier in Commissioner Sako remarks, we have now embarked in, we have developed the Africa Framework for Multi-Hazard Early Warning Systems and Early Action. And I will tell you briefly, so next slide. Next slide, please. Could you kindly increase the size? I can't see it well. Yeah, excellent, excellent. Yeah, the framework for multi-hazard early warning system and early action has been produced in response to previous decision and commitment of the African Union, the protocol relating to the establishment of the AU Peace and Security Council and African Peace and Security Architecture, with including a number of articles that emphasize early warning, prevention, humanitarian action, and disaster management. The African Union Executive Council, at its session in January 2015, endorsed the program of action for the implementation of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction in Africa and the Mauritius Declaration on implementation of Sendai framework. The program of action, as stipulated in the Sendai framework, targets to substantially increase the availability of and access to multi-hazard early warning systems, assessment, and disaster risk information and assessment to people by 2030. Next, please. Also, the Tunis Declaration 2018 encouraged African states to strengthen multi-hazard early warning systems. The Specialized Technical Committee with an AU mechanisms also call upon the African Union to establish a continental multi-hazard early warning systems. Next. The African Union Executive Council also in 2020 in Addis Ababa emphasized a number of issues relating to early warning and prevention. It asked the AU to undertake measures to strengthen, the AU member state, to strengthen their national systems on disaster-related displacement. And of course, a number of them also include to establish mechanisms that also need to mitigate adverse effects of environmental degradation, extreme weather patterns, and climate change, and also to ensure that early warning system and mechanisms of the AU, REX, and member states include early signs of disasters to facilitate early response and recovery. Next. The AU head of state and government also last year in January encouraged member states to take measures to strengthen their national systems on disaster-related displacement, disaster risk and reduction, and early warning in line with the Sendai framework, the Africa Regional Strategy for Disaster Risk Reduction, and the Program of Action for the implementation of the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction 2015-2030 in Africa. Next. So with all these decisions, so we have a challenge in front of us to ensure that we have an institutional framework that helps us to implement this decision. And this framework was undertaken in a number of stages. The first stage was the assessment of the status of early warning system in Africa. Among others, the assessment findings include notable efforts in establishing early warning systems, many of which are hazard-based early warning systems. None of the AU member states has actually fully functional multi-hazard early warning systems. And also one of the findings is that coordinating the many hazard early warning systems was cited as a major challenge. Stage 2 was the drafting of the framework, which was informed by the outcome of the assessment. The third stage was consultation and consolidation of inputs from member states and wider disaster risk management stakeholders. And stage 4 was the technical validation, which was done here in Nairobi in October 2021. Next. Next, please. So I will take you briefly through some content of the framework. I will not read all of them. But chapter 1 of the framework actually highlights the challenges that we have on disasters. Disasters have increased in Africa in recent years, and we have seen this, they are becoming more, risks in particular becoming more complex, systemic, and multidimensional. And therefore, multidimensional risks require multidimensional approaches. And with this, the objective of the continental framework is to develop a robust and multi-hazard framework for development of early warning systems that enable effective early action to be taken prior to a disaster, reducing personal injury, loss of life, and damage to property and environment. Next slide. And with this objective, we also going to contribute to the target G of the Sendai framework that includes substantially increase the availability of access of early warning system to people by 2030. And therefore, the objective of this framework is aligned to international checklists for multi-hazard early warning system, which is in the next slide. And of course, we are very familiar with that checklist. Next slide, please. An early warning system, of course, has these 4 categories. It has to take into account risk knowledge and issues of monitoring, warning and dissemination, preparedness and response. Next. The delivery of continental multi-hazard early warning system is complex and requires multiple activities to be coordinated over an extended period of time. Specific outputs and objectives set out in the framework include the establishment of a continental multi-hazard early warning programs that will run from 2022 to 2030. And the framework also includes establishment of common protocols and platforms for sharing data and risk information, capacity building, as well as the communication aspect of it, and protocols communication that will accompany this framework. Next, please. Chapter 2 actually includes requirements that need to be in place for an effective multi-hazard early warning mechanisms. And one of them that is you need to have adequate legal and institutional arrangements. The legal annex is attached to this framework. You also need to make sure that you have data sharing policy that ensure adequate sharing of data. And you need to adhere to certain principles, which include integration and comprehensiveness, risk information, scientific and technological basis, timeliness, awareness, cooperation, sustainability, shared responsibility, and of course, government accountability. These are very essential requirements for a multi-hazard early warning systems. Next, please. And one important aspect of this is the role and responsibilities. We have identified this role based on different departments at continental levels. These also need to be customized at direct and national levels, given that they have different structural arrangements. And the institutional role and responsibility is very critical for an effective early warning system. Next slide. And we have proposed delivery programs that will enable us to achieve these objectives in the next period. Can you increase the size? I can't see it well. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I will not go specifically, but we are looking at the impact. And this impact is to reduce disaster mortality, economic losses, and protect livelihood in a long term. And this is the program we would like to implement. And already part of it is supported by Italian government. But this is a very comprehensive program that will require substantial resources. Next, please. And the operational model that we also propose is the need for a better alignment of roles between continental, regional, national, and subnational levels. And this is very important. Detail of this is contained in the framework. Next. Next slide, please. Yeah, with this role, we propose some color coding, which really try to define at probation, just as basic, what role can the African Union play, the national level, as well as subnational levels. This is to ensure that this role I identified very clearly. And in an event of unprecedented event or a disaster that requires continental response, the role of AU and REX should be clearly defined to ensure that we coordinate better and also make use of available resources. Next. And this is the color coding that I was talking about to see them more clearly. I wouldn't explain them given the time that is remaining, but the colors really, they are only used for our purposes to ensure that we identify what needs to be done and by who at what time. So this color just helps us to understand when it is red, we know the AU need to intervene, and that role is defined in the system. Next. This is how we would like to see this system functioning, given that we are dealing with different structures. We would like to see a continuous communication interaction between national DRM units, the regional DRM unit, the AUC, to ensure that we are in constant communication. So this actually underlines the aspect of interoperability. Unless these systems are communicating to one another, it will be very difficult to coordinate. So the framework we are putting in place is trying to address that aspect. And I know in practice, this is going to be difficult, but the delivery program that we are putting in place is going to help us to achieve that. Next. Next slide. Next slide. And finally, the chapter 6 is mostly on the roadmap of the implementation of the programs. This is going to be in 3 stages. Stage 1 is the first 2 years, and that will focus more on institutional setup. Stage 2 is more on capacity building. And stage 3 is to see piloting of a truly multi-hazard early warning system at all stages, national, regional, and continental level. I thank you so much for your kind attention. I know this has been a very long presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kai, for your very comprehensive and thorough presentation of the African Union's multi-hazard early warning systems framework and its delivery program that also set the stage for, I believe, the presentations that will continue now with the rest of panelists. So thank you very much to you again. And I would like to move now and introduce Dr. Gulaid Artan, Director of the IGAD Climate Prediction and Applications Center. So welcome to you, Mr. Artan. Pleased to see you on screen. And we look forward to listening to you on the important role that IGAD plays on the multi-hazard early warning systems and risk information, I have to say, in Africa. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all. Thank you for organizing this timely session, and it's a pleasure for me to share my perspective. Climate extremes are on the rise in our region due to climate change and other risk drivers. Our region in the last 4 years has seen the same time in the same spots. The driest season is, and the season is with the most rainfall. So we're going from one extreme to the other extreme. A year ago, we had 5 million people displaced in 6 countries in the region by floods. Now we have 26 million people in need of humanitarian assistance in the region, mainly because of drought. We have 2 failed rainy season. So that is one. In the IGAD region, just in other parts of Africa, there is a high vulnerability and low coping capacity. Those are the main reasons why we see a large number of people that are affected by the adverse effects of climate extremes. Let's remember the high dependence on rain-fed subsistence farming and pastoralism for livelihood. At the regional level, the IGAD Climate Prediction and Application Center, ICPAC, is the premier regional climate center for Eastern Africa. We produce early warnings that go from the seasonal to the monthly to the weekly. We provide weather and climate forecast. We promote co-designing and co-production of climate services to better inform decision making, including early action to anticipate an impending climate risk. The reason we are using co-production, we are going more to co-production, is that our products have to be tailored to what is needed, not to what we can produce. So we're trying to reduce the gaps between the producers and the users of early warning data. Multi-hazard early warning systems for early action is one of the ways of reducing the impacts of disasters and the loss of livelihoods. And so, and it's quite cost-effective way of reducing disaster risks most of the time. However, it is mandatory for early warning information to be linked to early action to be useful, really to get the best of an early warning. We have to have an early action tied up to the early warning. That brings the need for cooperation and coordination, both at the community at risk, the agencies working on the early warning. Let's remind that early warning is a multidisciplinary issue, from water to weather to other components like what do you have, migratory pests here region. So at IGAT we have a really close collaboration with the disaster mitigation agencies of the region, the MET agencies, that and we collect data from them, and we add value to that data. So the early warning is timely dissemination messages to ensure that there is a constant state of preparedness, and early actions are enabled at all times. So this calls for close cooperation between producers and users of early warning data. We're working with different stakeholders to advance innovative approaches, such as impact-based forecasts. Instead of saying rainfall will be above average or below average, we're trying to give what that will mean in actuality, be floods or be on food production. We're working also on forecast-based actions, including financing, and we're promoting those. The launch of the IGAT Disaster Operations Center Situation Room, that has been already mentioned here, for multi-hazard early warning system for early action last month, is a clear indication of a successful cooperation that we had with UNDRR, CIMA, and the African Union, thanks to the funding by the Italian government. But also there's a clear commitment to advance the agenda of anticipating and managing disaster risk in a more proactive way. Having a state-of-the-art center on early warning, it will be an asset for IGAT and the member states of the region to advance multi-hazard early warning systems and promote anticipatory actions in that regard. It will serve as a center of excellence in building capacity of the member states in early warning and anticipatory actions to reduce the impacts of climate extremes that we're seeing more often at least in this region. I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Artan for your interesting presentation. We value very much the cooperation we have with IGAD and ICPAC. And indeed, I think that all the work that you are doing is of fundamental importance to contribute to the comprehensive multi-hazard early warning system capacities in Africa. So your presentation is very much welcomed. I'd like to now continue on and move to our next speaker. And based on our program, we have His Excellency Dickson Nzunda, Permanent of the Prime Minister Office of the United Republic of Tanzania, as our next speaker. So I would like to now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Nzunda.
Vice Minister Marina Selen, Deputy Minister, Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Riccardo Mena, Director, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Petery, Talas, Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, His Excellency Ambassador Josepha Sako, African Union Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy and Sustainable Environment, Mr. Hassan Nyambe, Head of Division, Disaster Risk Reduction Unit at African Union Commission, Mr. Guled Atan, Director, International Authority on Development Climatic Prediction and Application Center, Luca Loss, Deputy Chief, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, Regional Office for Africa. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I thank the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction for inviting the United Republic of Tanzania, specifically in the Prime Minister's office, to speak in this special session on early warning and early action during the 8th African Regional Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction. I thank the African Union Commission for coordinating the preparation of this important regional platform and government of the Republic of Kenya for hosting this important event. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of the United Republic of Tanzania really appreciates the long-time cooperation with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction in various disaster risk reduction programs. We basically acknowledge the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Cooperation during the 10th European Development Fund program, through which various initiatives, including developing the disaster risk profile for flood and drought, conducting risk-sensitive budget for review, involvement in analysis of multiple benefits of disaster risk reduction investments, and study visits leading to development of roadmap for improving the availability, access, and use of disaster risk information for early warning and early action. Thus includes the context of the transboundary risk management, which has been useful not only in providing guidance, but also for improving early warning systems at our regional and member states. Dear members, these initiatives, to me, have been implemented through active engagement and close cooperation with the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, technical staff, in generation of risk profile, economic analysis, and development of the roadmap, which increases ownership and furthermore engagement among partners. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and the Prime Minister's office, which is mandated to coordinate and manage disaster risk management activities in the country. And I believe early warning systems has been a priority for the government due to its importance in disaster risk reduction and sustainable development. As we all believe that the United Republic of Tanzania has got an opportunity to be the first African country to start the implementation of the roadmap through the ongoing process on operationalization, coordination, and open web GIS by Meteorological platform. This again, to us, demonstrates good cooperation with the United Nations agencies dealing with disaster management and risk reduction. In the course of implementation of this initiative, the government appreciates the technical support provided by CIMA Research Foundation and financial support from the Italian funds. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister's office is working very hard on these initiatives to strengthen the impact-based early warning systems, from encouraging and strengthening collaboration and engagement with Tanzania Meteorological Authority and the Ministry of Water as well. The impact-based forecast and warning approach are crucial for us for translating meteorological and hydrological hazard into a sector and location specific and facilitate the identification of mitigation among action for community resilience. Ladies and gentlemen, let me use this opportunity again to convey my sincere appreciation for ongoing cooperation and ensure that the government of Tanzania will continue and indeed is committed to work with the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction and other UN and international agencies, regional communities, and other key stakeholders to strengthen disaster risk reduction, multi-hazard early warning system, and managing transboundary risks. With these few words, I thank you again for listening. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much to His Excellency Tickson Nsun from the United Republic of Tanzania. And we indeed value very much the long-term cooperation between your country and UNDRR, particularly in the context of the 10th EDF program. And I would like to also congratulate you on the progress being made on the DRR agenda in Tanzania. I am pleased now to give the floor to my esteemed colleague, Luca Rossi, the Deputy Chief of our Regional Office for Africa based in Nairobi, and ask Luca perhaps to make a few reflections on the previous presentations and also highlight the importance of this work around partnerships and strong relationships that we have been, of course, prioritizing throughout our work in Africa. So, Luca, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair, and Excellency, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. This is really an honor for me to be part of this important panel with such eminent panelists who have shared their experience with us. And this is a very successful story from a long-term partnership. Early warning systems are a critical part of disaster risk reduction. However, as it happens in many other regions, even here in the African region, Africa faces several challenges in making these very effective. This is for several reasons, and this includes the lack of a proper institutional framework, as it was addressed by Kai, which clearly assign roles and responsibility to the different stakeholders, ensuring that the best possible forecast is made and transmitted to the authorities in charge of prevention and mitigation of the disaster impact, along with the authority to activate and implement such measures. This is really important point. Another one is the lack of timely and reliable information from the ground, particularly when we are talking about the exposure, the vulnerability that is used for the quantitative impact-based early warning system. Fragmentation and diversity of multiple already existing early warning system and the limited capacity to systematically analyze the available information and generate comparable results to prioritize the use of the limited available resources and capacities is another important challenge. In order to address these needs, UNDRR has been supporting the African Union Commission, the African Center of Meteorological Application for Development, the IGAD Climate and Prediction Application Center, the African member states in developing a roadmap for improving this early warning system across the continent. This has been done through a pretty consultative and inclusive process, which went through an extensive and inclusive consultation, which involved all the main stakeholders, ranging from the World Meteorological Organization, particularly for the component which is related to the hydrometeorological hazard, to the African centers already existing in Africa with good expertise in this area. And of course, we went and reached out to other international partners in Europe and worldwide to share their experience. In particular, we organized back in 2019 a study tour which took a delegation from the African stakeholders, high-level and technical experts, to the European Emergency Response and Coordination Center of the Union Civil Protection System, and also in Italy to visit the existing Italian civil protection system in that country. And what was emerging is that the study tour clearly demonstrated how effective coordination between the local, national, and continental stakeholders, ranging from the academia, so the scientific component, to the authorities, to the private sector, to the civil society. Enhancing this coordination is vital in order to make this early warning system very effective, and hence reducing loss of lives and economic impact. As such, this study visit and experience that was shared during this period was inspiring the development of the African roadmap, which has been then further customized to the specific needs of the different stakeholders across the continent. The roadmap in particular, as mentioned earlier by Kai, aimed at the review of the legal and institutional framework, which happened in October 2021, and during this multi-hazard early warning conference that we had here in Nairobi. Additionally, standard operating procedure for the data and the data sharing policy have been discussed for the timely and effective exchange of data and information through the common open source platform for the generation and dissemination of this early warning, which also include a possibility to deal with transboundary risk management. The roadmap, accordingly, is in fact proposing an open source platform which has been developed across more than 20 years of close cooperation between research center and civil protection authorities in Italy. And it's regularly maintained and further developed by the regular budget allocated by the government of Italy. This is particularly important because it ensures that the operativity of this platform goes far beyond the duration of any development project that we can support. The fact that it is open source and free of charge, it makes it very suitable for our common purposes. But of course, UNDRR stands ready to endorse any other system which is presenting the same features. The open source system is the MyDeWetra platform, consolidates data from multiple sources, including from the field, from the international database, and from remote sensing data. And is equipped already with multiple models for the analysis of this data. And of course, it can integrate more, which can be provided by the different stakeholders joining this system and this platform. It is already endorsed by the World Meteorological Organization and already adopted in many countries across the world. In Africa, it is now already established at the level of the African Union Commission, at ACMAD, the ICPAC Center that was, as it was already introduced by Dr. Artan, and it's currently under installation in Ethiopia and in the United Republic of Tanzania. As such, we are trying to test the system across all the levels, from the continental to the sub-regional and to the national level. This is a very powerful tool, and this system is going, the solution is going to implement it under ongoing initiative in the Eastern and Southern Africa. And with future funds, the implementation is going to extend it through the Central and Western Africa, thanks to our main donors, which includes the government of Italy, the European Commission, the government of Sweden, and the Cruise Initiative. As even the Vice Ministers Sereni and Kai were mentioning in their contribution, this tool requires a technical scientific capacity to be operated. And accordingly, UNDRR and the other partners have designed a training program which builds on triangular cooperation mechanism between international most advanced training center and research center, which are already having advanced knowledge based in the African continent. Those will jointly work in order to deliver training tools and operational services to the African institution. So the idea is that instead of doing the work on behalf of the African institution, international partners can assist African and international expertise center to accompany this work to be delivered for the benefit of the African institution. And this, as was also mentioned by previous speaker, enhances the ownership and aims at building the capacity, which will last beyond the project duration. At the same time, we are boosting the establishment of a triangular combination mechanism, which can continue in the long run the support for capacity building in the African institution. The system has been rolled out in its pilot phase, as I was saying, at the African Union Commission, ACMAD, IGAD, Ethiopia, and in the United Republic of Tanzania. It already covers multi-hazard ranging from flood, drought, and forest fires. The different stakeholder exchange data and information through the WETRA platform, and according to defined standard operating procedures, which are currently tested. It generates the Continental Watch produced by the African Union twice a week, and in case of any incident, also the situation report. This info is used at different levels. In the case of the African Union, this informs the African Union organs, and the level of the regional economic communities, this is used to advise their member states and other international partners about the potential risks coming and about the most appropriate mitigation measures to be implemented. This approach that UNDRR and this partner have been adopting in the implementation of this program across the African continent already carries some important results. The first one is that we have established a relation through which we are working with African partners. We are not working any longer with African beneficiaries. So the African stakeholders are leading partner in the design and implementation of this program. Accordingly, what we are promoting is African solutions which are addressing African needs. So the African stakeholders are the one in the lead in this case, even in identifying the solution for the specific needs. What we are doing is also to increase durable local capacity through this partnership, particularly this triangular cooperation mechanism. And the enhanced cooperation is which we already experienced, which we already witnessed among its different African stakeholders, already allows for immediate and effective use of existing data, which of course will further benefit of the huge investments that many partners and donors are doing in order to improve the quantity and quality of the data coming from the ground and from the other sources. What we are also already experiencing is an increased ownership on sustainability in the long term of this initiative from the African stakeholder. And finally, another very important things that we are witnessing here is the coordinated and complementary contribution both from implementing partners and donors who are coming together and agreeing on how to further support the implementation of this program. Let me share just 1 minute video clip that we have recently developed in the occasion of the inauguration of the ICPAC Center, which gives you already the idea on how this work is already real, tangible, and serve multiple purposes. I will ask the colleagues to put on the video. Thank you very much. So that's it. Thank you very much for looking at the video. As you have seen, this situation room that has been established at the Disaster Operation Center at the ICPAC premises is something that is, of course, established by the effort of UNDRR in partnership with the African Union and with ICPAC, but is serving already multiple purposes. And as you have seen, there are other experts that are using this data and are sharing their data and information and their knowledge in order to inform the action at the regional and national level. The room is staffed even from personnel coming from ICPAC and, of course, from other organizations like FAO, WFP, and other UN entities. In terms of the next steps, what we are going to do in the near future is to consolidate the results that we have already achieved, particularly in terms of capacity building of the African expertise through the strengthening of this triangular cooperation mechanism. And then we are going to expand the implementation of the roadmap in the region that I was mentioning before. And this specific topic, particularly the one about the enhanced cooperation, is the one that we are going to deal with in the next working session, which will start in a couple of minutes at 4 o'clock. I will stop here. Thank you very much, and I remain available for any further clarification. Thank you. Back to you, Ricardo.
Thank you, Luca, very much for this good presentation, good reflection also, and the nice video, which clearly are a good testament of the work that is being done in Africa on this topic of multi-hazard early warning systems. So I thank you very much. I would like to remind those that are participating in this special session the possibility of putting questions for our panelists on the chat box. We have started receiving questions, and I encourage you to put questions forward, as we will be soon also trying to reflect on the questions that our participants are putting on the chat box. But in the meantime, we still have 2 presentations to go, so I would like to now move ahead quickly and welcome the statement through video message from Marine Collignon, Head of Multilateral Affairs, Environment and Climate of the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs of France, in relation to the cruise engagement in the African continent. So if you could please put the video message on. Thank you.
Chers organisateurs, chers participants, je voudrais tout d'abord remercier chaleureusement le Kenya ainsi que les organisateurs du Bureau des Nations Unies pour la prévention des risques de catastrophe pour leur invitation. Je suis très heureuse de pouvoir m'adresser à vous aujourd'hui dans le cadre de la plateforme régionale Afrique pour la réduction des risques de catastrophe, alors que nous venons de clore 2 semaines de négociations sur le changement climatique dans le cadre de la COP26 à Glasgow. En effet, les pays qui sont les plus exposés aux aléas climatiques sont aussi les pays qui ont le moins de capacités pour y faire face et ont le moins accès aux technologies telles que les systèmes d'alerte précoce. C'est pourquoi la France soutient activement la gestion des risques de catastrophe et les systèmes d'alerte précoce dans la région, notamment au travers de l'initiative CRUISE que nous présidons cette année. La réduction des risques de catastrophe est plus que jamais un sujet d'actualité qui mérite l'engagement plein et entier de la communauté internationale. Toutes les études scientifiques le montrent. En lien avec le changement climatique, l'intensité et la fréquence des catastrophes naturelles augmentent, engendrant des dégâts de plus en plus importants pour les sociétés et les économies. En 50 ans, le risque de catastrophe a été multiplié par 5 sous l'effet du changement climatique et de la multiplication des phénomènes météorologiques extrêmes. Face à ce constat, et conformément aux engagements pris dans le cadre de l'accord de Paris, il nous faut collectivement renforcer notre action en faveur de l'adaptation et de la résilience au changement climatique. Force est de constater que les engagements actuels ne sont pas à l'échelle. Une personne sur 3, par exemple, n'est toujours pas couverte de manière adéquate par des systèmes d'alerte précoce. Les États les plus vulnérables au risque de catastrophe et les plus exposés aux conséquences du changement climatique sont d'ailleurs d'abord ceux qui y contribuent le moins, et en particulier les pays les moins avancés et les petits États insulaires en développement. Les efforts de la communauté internationale doivent donc s'orienter en priorité vers ces pays particulièrement vulnérables. L'initiative CRUISE, Climate Risk and Early Warning System, participe à cet effort. Pour ceux qui ne sont pas familiers de l'initiative, CRUISE est un mécanisme de financement initié en 2015 par la France. 8 pays contribuent à son fonds fiduciaire et le Canada et la Commission européenne apportent un appui financier complémentaire. Le continent africain est particulièrement bien représenté parmi les projets financés par CRUISE, avec 6 projets nationaux et un projet régional. Le projet national au Burkina Faso est d'ailleurs le tout premier projet lancé par CRUISE. Le portfolio actuel de CRUISE en Afrique est de 23 millions de dollars américains, soit près de la moitié des engagements financiers à ce jour. Des projets additionnels seront lancés prochainement, notamment des projets régionaux en Afrique centrale, dans la Corne de l'Afrique ou encore dans la zone océan Indien. CRUISE travaille avec les services hydrométéorologiques nationaux et vise à renforcer les échanges régionaux de données et d'informations, notamment entre les services des 19 États impliqués dans le projet régional en Afrique de l'Ouest. L'objectif est de développer des outils de prédiction saisonnière et d'événements plus soudains, tels que les inondations éclairs ou les tempêtes de sable et de poussière, afin de renforcer la résilience des systèmes alimentaires locaux. Le secteur agricole, extrêmement important en Afrique, est en effet l'un des premiers à subir les conséquences du changement climatique. Il est donc fondamental de mettre en place des systèmes d'alerte précoce, associés à des actions de sensibilisation et de formation des populations, qui permettront concrètement de réduire les dégâts subis par les systèmes alimentaires. Pour chaque financement, les opérations sont soutenues par 3 partenaires avec une solide expertise. La Banque mondiale, au travers de la Facilité globale pour la réduction et le recouvrement du risque de catastrophe, le GFDRR, l'Organisation météorologique mondiale et le Bureau des Nations unies pour la réduction des risques de catastrophe. En résumé, nous avons ici un bon exemple de ce que les États et leurs partenaires peuvent faire sur le terrain et avec des résultats concrets en faveur de la réduction des risques de catastrophe dans les pays les plus vulnérables. La France se réjouit de continuer à travailler avec les pays présents aujourd'hui, en particulier dans la perspective de la plateforme globale sur la réduction des risques de catastrophe qui se tiendra à Bali en 2022. afin de s'assurer que le niveau des engagements soit suffisamment ambitieux pour renforcer la résilience des populations et des pays les plus exposés aux impacts du changement climatique. Je vous remercie encore une fois pour votre invitation.
Merci beaucoup à Madame Collignon pour sa participation et pour l'aide apportée par les gouvernements français pour la réduction de risques de catastrophes à travers de l'initiative CRUISE. Thank you very much. I would now move to our last presenter. So I have the pleasure to invite the intervention from the floor by the representative of the DG ECHO field office in Nairobi. So I would like to invite Alexander Castellano, Chief of the Field Office for South Africa, to take the floor.
It is a pleasure for me to be here, and I would like to appreciate the invitation. It is very important indeed to keep working on early warning system, and this special session show clearly the importance of the commitment from various African countries, UN, NGOs to do so. In the last few years, ECHO allocated every year a significant amount of funds worldwide for disaster preparedness that include activity and support for early warning system. Only in the last year, more than 50 million euros has been allocated for disaster preparedness worldwide. And a big amount actually is going to Africa. For the Southern African Indian Ocean region, regularly and every year since 2010, there have been allocations that were ranging every year between 5, 7, and sometimes 9, 10 million euro. That part of it is used for early warning system. ECHO wants to stress the importance of continuous investment into strengthening early warning system as part of wider DP strategy, and even more so with the impact of the climate change becoming visible more and more rapidly. Those early warning systems should be a multi-hazard character. ECHO continues to stress the relevance of including, for example, other risks than flood and drought into early warning system. We might think about epidemics, for instance, conflict and social tension, for example. National and regional early warning systems should share the same methodology for the definition of thresholds related to same impact-based scenarios. We think that additional efforts are required to ensure that the many early warning systems existing across Africa are and should be A, well coordinated, and B, brought within a unique systematized system to optimize the access and use of already available information, while already ongoing investment will generate additional data from the field and other remote sensing applications. At the level of the Emergency Response Coordination Center, ECHO has a set of tools available to monitor hazard and events around the world, such as earthquakes and tsunamis, tropical cyclones, volcanoes, droughts, floods, and forest fire. ECHO would like to stress that these are freely accessible tools to all actors, also outside the European Union. More recently, we are supporting UNDRR in various countries in the Southern African Indian Ocean region to promote the use of MyDevata. It is a platform for data visualization and sharing platform for National Disaster Risk Management Agency. It's a free and open system and could be considered a viable option as done in other countries, we believe. We would like to thank you for these initiatives and to give us a chance to talk about this. And we encourage to keep working together in this promotion of the early warning system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexander Castellano from the ECHO Field Office for South Africa. Very much appreciated. ECHO, one of our strong partners in Africa, but also in other regions of the world where we work together. And important point you make about the availability of a set of tools that ECHO has developed that are available for countries in Africa to use and take advantage of those. So thank you very much for your participation. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we move now to the Q&A segment of our special session. I would like to invite one of the panelists to please provide a response to the following question that we are registering now on the chat box. The question is not directed to anyone in particular, but I suppose that Kai perhaps would be the best placed panelist to respond to this. And the question is, how do we ensure that lessons learned, standard operating procedures, and good practices are made available to relevant actors, including to facilitate the smooth operationalization of SADC Humanitarian and Emergency Center in Mozambique? So I invite any of our panelists to provide a response to this question.
Well, thank you, Ricardo. This is a very good question, and part of the delivery program that we are putting in place to implement the institutional framework is to establish technical working groups. And this technical working group will build on existing mechanisms, such as the Africa regional platforms. We look forward, like every 2 years, to have a multi-hazard early warning conference on the margins of the regional platforms, and that is where lessons and best practices can be shared across board. And that is one way of making sure that we have those mechanisms for discussion. We also have the Africa working groups that meet every 6 months, and I think this is also another mechanisms that will ensure that best practices are shared among stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kai. And of course, we are now almost close to our time fixed for this session. So I don't want to take much more of your time, but there are actually two questions more. And I would like to perhaps invite our colleague from IGAD, if possible, to take them. And one is a comment with a question: a wonderful initiative to establish scientific hazards early warning mechanisms. If there are any attempts to also tap on the indigenous early warning systems and knowledge, and a recommendation for IGAD to provide information on drought situation, its effects and conflicts associated to it to member states. So I perhaps invite our colleague from IGAD if you would like to take those questions. I think we have lost Mr. Dr. Artan from IGAD. I just had seen him on the screen, but I don't see him anymore. So if anybody else would like to make a comment on this question. No, so what we can do is we can pass this on to Dr. Artan, so that he can respond later on the chat. So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the final moments of this special session. I want to thank all the panelists for their excellent presentations and for your participation. It has very much been appreciated. And I would like to perhaps just as way of concluding remarks to mention that we have listened about the context in the African continent, which, disasters on the rise, high vulnerability to climate change and other hazards, both man-made and natural hazards, and with some countries having low capacity to deal with this. However, the institutional framework in Africa has gone a long way in these past years. The institutional framework has been strengthened. The technical capabilities and the operational capabilities have also been significantly strengthened. There is a strong Africa program of action that is being implemented, and there is even some efforts around the preventive approaches towards disaster risk reduction, including through not only the early warning, early action systems, but also impact-based forecasting to try to anticipate and reduce, of course, the impact of hazards. I think that the important thing to highlight also is the fact that most of these activities are actually being led by the African institutions and countries, and this is very important and an absolute condition for strong ownership and sustainability of all these efforts. And I would like to also highlight the very strong support that has been received, and we hope that it will be so in the future as well. Strong support from our key partners to support all these initiatives, for which we are most grateful. And in spite of all this progress, there are many challenges that we still face and that need to be addressed. Some of them have to do with the lack of information and data in general due to fragmentation, still some work in silos by some of the stakeholders, the need to beef up and strengthen technical capacities, and the need to systematize also existing efforts. So with this, I would like to close again by thanking our distinguished panelists and all those that have made statements and participated in the panel. Thank you very much to those that are listening to us for the very good questions. And with this, I would now declare this session closed. Thank you very much.